Hi, my name is Claire. I'm 16. I'm just a normal teenager. Or I was, until recently. Have you ever dreamed of superpowers like those of comic book superheroes? Imagine that you have it, and because of this, life has become noticeably more difficult. Watch to the end, and you will learn how I learned to have X-ray vision. Recently, my mom and dad and I moved to a new house, and I had to go to a new school. I was very afraid that I would not be able to find friends quickly. I always thought I was a little strange and different from my peers. I often noticed that I had strange dreams, and that I could feel if a person next to me was sad or unwell. My strange sensitivity, as I called it, was always treated poorly by my classmates. This was because I once asked my classmate Jack to be careful on his bike on the way to school because I had a bad dream. I didn't know why I asked him so confidently, because it was just a dream. But on the way, his bike chain caught in his pants just like in my dream and he fell to the side of the road. Jack came up to me with a bandaged leg and gave me the honorific crazy. That's how it got to me. So I was afraid that history would repeat itself and decided to keep my mouth shut. But surprisingly, everyone in the class seemed to be happy with me and sometimes paid too much attention to me. I quickly became friends with the guys, and I even started to like school, which I had not noticed before. Do you quickly get used to new people? I finally started to understand biology, and I loved it so much that I wanted to go to medical school next year. It seemed that my life had changed a lot, and for the better. So I thought, until my crazy echo of the past caught up with me in the new place. In the morning, as usual, going to school, I realized that my eyes hurt a lot. I remembered the words of my beloved grandmother and blamed it on the computer in my life. My father didn't take me to school that morning because he had a bad stomach ache and didn't know what to do with it for 4 days. My mother nervously put me in my father's car and drove me to school. I saw how she was going through it, and I wanted to calm her down. I still don't know how I saw it, but when I looked at my dad, I saw that there was something wrong with his pancreas. It was highlighted brown on his stomach. I told my mother that. She pretended that I didn't say anything strange and just said, I guess I should check it out. I could see that she wasn't taking my words seriously, but Dad was in so much pain that he was ready to believe anything to make him feel better. And he was checked. Dad was diagnosed with pancreatic inflammation. He was urgently sent for surgery, and the doctor added that it was discovered just in time. At the hospital, my dad thanked me and said that I had the talent of a doctor. And I didn't know what to call it. I just saw what was inside him. Then I started to see what was inside the others. My classmate, Judy, had hernia in her back. The math teacher had heart failure. At first, it was fun to watch other people's organs, how they moved, how they didn't look like each other. But then it started to make me afraid. Because I could see, but I couldn't tell. And the person was suffering. There was a feeling of impotence. But how? And most importantly, what do I say? Excuse me, I have X-ray vision and you should get your heart checked out because you have a blocked valve on the right ventricle of the heart. I would have laughed in the face of the person who told me this at best and at worst, handed them over to a mental hospital. After living like this for another 3 months, I realized that it was unbearable. I told my mother that I could see the organs of all the people around me. My mother always knew what to do, and I thought that here, too, she would find the perfect solution. And the next week, we went to a science center. At first, I thought we were just going to the doctor, until the door slammed and we were on opposite sides of that door with my parents. Great. At that moment, I felt that my parents had brazenly betrayed me. Where did they send me? What for? I was filled with resentment and fear. I did not understand what was coming. Experiments began on me. I was placed in solitary confinement as a criminal. There was a bed, toilet, TV, pillows, and food. Well, yes, I agree, not the most terrible cell of a prisoner. But it did not save me from the thought, when will all this end? Each morning began with tests, injections, and conversations with a man who called himself a doctor but confused medical terms. I hope he was just nervous. Then conversations with a psychologist about my childhood and parents. I didn't want to talk about them at all. Have you ever been very offended by your parents? Then you will understand for sure. The last straw of these incompetent experiments for me was the literal cruelty of the orderly. When I refused to take a pill, the employee hit me on the shoulder. I took the pill and realized that I had to run away from here. This was not easy because I was only allowed out on the street once a day at about noon and with a guard. I'm still sure that I was helped by some kind of miracle. Well, or hormones, because the guard was in love with the nurse and missed the moment of my escape. And now I was waving at him from the back of the gate. The problem with the terrible conclusion was solved, but I did not think where I would go after this prison. The only options I had were my parents, my grandmother, or an independent life. My parents might put me in that prison again, or I might become a tramp in a white shirt, which was not a pleasant prospect either. So it seemed that going to my grandmother was the only sensible and pleasant option. My grandmother welcomed me with joy. I told her everything I'd been through. She was angry and promised to scold my mother for doing this to me. Grandma is funny when she's angry, and I was glad that I found support in her. Everything seemed to start going as usual. I went back to school. I didn't miss much during the week. This week passed for me as a painful year, and everyone else in school had only 3 math lessons. And even these terrible pictures of sick people around me disappeared. I even wondered if I was imagining it. Then it was even more insulting that I was in this cage of torture for nothing. But I couldn't believe that these organs everywhere had stopped tormenting me. Just like I couldn't believe my grandmother had turned me in. She told my parents where I was. And here were my precious parents standing on the doorstep with a guilty face and thinking that I would forgive them just for showing up on the doorstep of a house where they were not expected. I looked at my grandmother with the question, "Why are you doing this to me?" She was the first to speak. She said that I got it wrong and my parents didn't know what I was going through. My mother continued and apologetically told how it really was. They took me to the examination and diagnosis of the brain to understand the cause of this phenomenon. They had no intention of dumping me on the test. Doctors, under the pretext of suspicion of brain disorders, urged my parents to leave me for free treatment. My parents got scared and of course they said yes. And only when they came home they began to suspect that something was wrong. Doctors did not give them the pictures of my head, refused to let them see me, and even took away my phone. My mother got scared and started coming to the hospital every day. The nurse, in confidence, said that I was missing. My mother almost turned gray in the emergency room. She began to swear and called for the chief doctor, but there was no answer. My grandmother made the responsible decision to tell her that I was fine. I suppose I would have done the same, though I thought it was unfair and cruel of her at the time. It was like my heart was released. I realized that no one had betrayed me, and my parents didn't get rid of me as a monster that could tarnish their reputation. They love me and really want to help. My mother was determined and went to court to deal with the offenders. I don't know exactly what happened with the pseudoscience center. My mother was happy, so she had won the court. From her, I learned what really happened to me. The whole story with X-ray vision turned out to be my wild imagination and passion for medicine, plus overwork. I wasn't even upset that I wasn't special anymore. It was important to me that I was finally free from torment and that I could help people with my talent to heal and not with my ability to see the invisible. And now I can say what and where it hurts, only sometimes using medical tricks. And I am already looking forward to my work as a doctor, which will help hundreds and hopefully thousands of people. If you like the story, please like it. And to see more of these stories, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate your uniqueness and believe that you are surrounded by good people.